All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Another episode of the Smart Life Podcast. Aaron Taylor here. Hey, real quick before we get into today's episode, if the show is inspiring you, if you like what you hear, if you like what any of the guests have said, one thing I want to encourage you, go onto any of our streaming platforms. You can go to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and I encourage you just like it, share it, and hopefully it's inspiring to you. I always love definitely having multiple guests on. You've heard so many different stories, so many different testimonies, and so many different avenues people are into, and how they're continuing to use their platform, their gifts, their talents to help others. And I really believe that each and every one of us has a unique gift, a unique calling, a unique niche. And some of us are finding it in many different ways. Some of us are creative, some of us are athletic, some of us can do more than one thing. And so I encourage you tap into your gift, and you never know what you might have. And so the very thing that you're equipped in, that might be something that can help somebody. It can help somebody's day. It can also help somebody get to their next step. And we all have a next step. So we all have a next step. So I really thought it was really cool that my guest today got on here. He's in such a unique field, and something that I remember even in the days when I was doing athletics. I had looked into this a long time ago, but I've got Zach Eagle. First off, one of the most humble, unique people I've ever had the chance to come up with. He and I came from the same college, both went to Eastern Washington. Zach, a former college athlete, did football. And now he's in the world of PT. So he's got the doctor of physical therapy. He's also a strength and conditioning coach. And it's amazing to see how many different athletes, even former athletes. I still consider you an athlete, by the way, Zach, because you're still in shape. But it's amazing to see how many different athletes are now utilizing what they learned, whether it was practice or maybe they just felt they were called to it. And so I just appreciate the fact, Zach, that what you're doing now, and how you're continuing to help athletes, how you're continuing to inspire athletes, especially in the area when it comes to muscle recovery, getting proper rest, and getting proper health and exercise. So just even in, let's take it back, even in the days when you were playing football, uh, I always thought it was really unique how football athletes kind of trained and just how they thought. And one of the things that football athletes always told me was that their body tended to need a lot more rest. They tended to need a lot of recovery. And just from your playing days, when you played, how much rest recovery was so critical just from your standpoint, so that way when you went into uh, the game or you went into a practice, how much did that play? Did you feel refreshed after that, after your regimen?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But first off, I just want to say thanks, Aaron. Appreciate you having me on and just giving me a platform to talk. So
No
I'm looking
problem.
forward
Absolutely.
to this time and getting to share my experiences with your audience. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, no, recovery is crucial, and just I mean, going back to like fall camp, right? So starting out in like August, um, long days, right? Like we got multiple practices, meetings, lifts, and obviously there's a lot of physicality to football. So guys are going to get banged up, uh, you know, bruises or just sore joints, tight muscles, all kinds of things like that. And yeah, you really do have to invest. I think it starts with just being mindful and trying to get really good food in and hydration, and then getting good sleep, and then of course spend a good amount of time in the athletic training room just to try to nurse any little injuries or get any treatment for that. So, yeah, I would definitely say super important to be just mindful of your body and prepare for the upcoming game each weekend.
Yeah, let's touch a little bit on that because There's so many different over the years. I've talked to many different football players, and I'm always just kind of fascinated when um, there's so much unique ability, athleticism that football players have and they possess, and just in their routine. And I'm just kind of looking at these athletes. I see how much development they're putting, how much hard work they're putting into, but I'm always just kind of wondering, like, when it comes, like, have you ever really personally come across somebody that was so naturally gifted, but then but then they never really did the other things to kind of help their body recover in the process? You could have you could have the best ability to hit, to throw, but how critical and important was it for that particular athlete to make sure that, hey, don't just do the natural gifted things that you already can do, or things that you've developed over time, but these are the things that you have to make sure that you insert to make sure that you don't get cold, to make sure that your skill set doesn't diminish. How important was that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, uh, I mean, I think college sports in general is an interesting place because pretty much everyone there coming from high school was kind of probably one of the top players on their team, right? And so a lot of the athletes, in football and other sports, are very gifted, talented, and so maybe some people didn't actually have to, maybe work as hard, or they didn't have to prioritize their recovery. Um, but then, yeah, you get to college, and kind of already mentioned just kind of the busy schedule and the long days, and then once we start classes, then it's like if you're someone who's not just only there for football, you're like, I'm trying to get a degree as well. That's another
Yes.
time commitment and stressor on top of that. So there's no question that your time is limited, and so uh, just trying to manage the stress and get recovery when you can is super important. But I would say that, yeah, there probably was some guys who uh, didn't see the value in it, or maybe thought they were talented enough to not have to focus on that recovery. And yeah, I think sometimes that probably did affect guys, whether it be their health, and maybe mid or late season it caught up with them with an injury. Hard to say. You can't really point it to one thing, but there's no question that the recovery plays a factor in that. So I would say that's what I would say about that.
Yeah. Take me back just in, prior to you stepping on campus. Did you ever imagine just the position you'd be in? Like, hey, I'm actually playing college football. Was that ever on your mind as you kind of stepped into that? Was growing up, did you ever envision playing college football in your house?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I always had the dream from just a young age. So I grew up. My dad was and is still a high school football coach, and so he coached me through youth football and then in high school. And so I just grew up around the game a lot. I was
Mhm.
the ball boy when I was in grade school, running the ball onto the field and back for the high school team. And so I think I just really gravitated towards the game and loved it, and always had the dream of being able to play in college.
Yeah. Did your dad just kind of push you pretty hard to kind of, give you that next level push, like, hey, I see what you have, but I want to help you develop. How important was your dad in terms of your instrumental growth over the years as you went into college? How much of an important factor was he for you?
Yeah, no, he's super important, just role model in my life in general, and probably my biggest supporter out of anyone. But I think he did a really good job of not pressuring me. Like
Mhm.
he never wanted me to feel like I had to play. And I think sometimes it can be hard. Or I can imagine having a child on a sports team is like, you don't want to give them preferential treatment, but you maybe
Mhm.
don't want to be hard on them as well.
Right.
Sometimes you can see probably apparent lean towards one or the other, but I felt like he did a pretty good job of, trying to, obviously I'm his son, but still treating me as one of the other players. And one thing that always, stood out to me is like, uh, he would just periodically say this. We'd be like driving home from practice, and he's like, Zach, you don't have to play football for me to love you. Like,
Mm,
it's
wow.
that didn't really have any part in that. So but he enjoyed watching me play, and obviously supported me
Yeah.
in my dreams.
Was he your favorite coach overall? Just overall in your journey?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know how I could answer and say no. No, he
Yeah.
he was he was great. I mean, I still saw him as my dad, and he didn't necessarily coach my position. Um, Maybe I had, throughout high school and obviously college, I had other coaches who I just spent more time
Mhm.
with.
Yeah. Well, wow. I mean, it's not, you don't hear that very often, obviously. There are some stories we hear, kids being coached by their parents growing up, and then now it transitions, they go over to the college. So as you transition, you went over into the college game. It's a totally different spectrum that you're in, the environment that you're in, the training regimen. And I think there's a lot of athletes, and even high school athletes I've had a chance to conversate over, and sometimes I think the mentality is they think that, okay, because I was so great in high school, I'm immediately just going to impact on in the college game. And I think sometimes we miss the part where, okay, yes, we had so much growth and achievement here in the high school realm, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to develop further. So as you got into the college atmosphere, year one, year two, year three, you're progressing. What were some things that you felt like over those years? This is what I had to do to continue to get better, better in my position, better so that I could mentally focus, better to make sure that I took care of my body. What were some things that you felt like helped you throughout your journey, helped you stay healthy, and just helped you enjoy the game?
Yeah, that's good. I would say that, yeah, when first coming in, like you mentioned, some players think they're gonna, maybe just have an immediate impact, and maybe a few players will have that opportunity, but for the most part, a large percent of guys will redshirt, right? So take a year where they're just practicing. And, I had some, you know, ambitions, and I thought, I might be able to, play special teams or play right away. And then, once I figured out I was redshirting, then you kind of have that realization. You're like, all right, like this is hard. I went from playing to now I'm just going to be practicing the whole year. But that's an opportunity to grow and develop. And so, yeah, I think just trying to find enjoyment in the process. I know that's cliche, but you really have to love the game, especially if you're going to right practice for a whole year and not play. Because some guys could say, not playing, like, what's really the point of continuing to, you know, put in as much effort or strive to be the best? But I think I just saw it as one, coming in, wasn't the biggest guy. So I know I had to get a little bit bigger and stronger so that I could, one, for health, but then
Hmm.
also just to become more explosive, just a better athlete.
Hmm.
And then just trying to work on all areas of my game, coming in and learning a lot. Just I think the skill level and the detail of the coaching is a lot at a different level. And so realizing that, and then yeah, wanting to just work on my craft. So working on route running, how can I be good with my footwork and releases, just so that I can put myself in the best position to be able to play. Because especially at Eastern, when I was there, I mean, you probably remember we had a pretty competitive wide receiver room, right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
Cooper
absolutely.
Cup, Kendrick Bourne, Shaq Hill, uh, Dominic Splendoria. I mean, a
Uh,
number of other guys. I'm not gonna
A lot of NFL
lift
talent
out some
right
other
there in that
guys.
room. Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, Simba was in my class. And so, yeah, a number of guys. And so it's like, well, how am I going to set myself apart?
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to develop your game in multiple areas.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And, it just kind of reminds me, when I had first I had come on the scene and, because I have a track and field background. And first of all, I was actually undersized when I came on. I was like 100, I was 150-pound kid, basically like 148 pounds coming on here. And being a sprinter, I remember just part of that first year, I had redshirted because I was so used to competing with guys my size, and that now that I'm on the Division 1 scene, it's like, okay, guys have strengthened their bodies a little bit. They've gotten a little bit more size, a little bit more speed. And so I remember, just as you said, just that first year, a lot of speed, a lot of development, a lot of muscle strength. But it was in the learning that I felt like I was becoming just kind of a better student of this, because I saw things differently. It allowed me to focus, even if I wasn't competing, but I still, every single day I was going against guys in practice. I felt like I was getting better and better as I became stronger. And it just allowed me to feel more confident. At any point, did you feel like, as you continue to grow, as you continue to, uh, get stronger in the roots, you built your strength, how did your confidence level continue to elevate throughout that? And there's a lot of great receivers that you're around, a lot of great coaches and staff that you had. How was your confidence level continuing?
Yeah, I think it definitely developed throughout the years. You get there and freshman, you're on a new team, right? The whole new playbook, so you're not really familiar with, what am I actually doing out here? And then it's competitive, right? So guys are playing at a high level. At first, you kind of have to have that drive in you to obviously compete. But then as you just are in it, right, and practicing and throughout, the first fall season and then the spring season and then, throughout the years, I think you get settled into seeing that type of competition every day. You become more aware of the expectations from coaches, like as far as like, um, performing to a certain level, what needs to happen. And so I think just that understanding and what needs to be done, and then, just continuing to stack days. I think being consistent, working hard, um, putting in extra time when able, and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff um, leads to more confidence. It did for me, just because I I knew I had put in the work, and I had developed parts of my game. So that definitely is huge for helping with confidence.
Absolutely. That's so good. You guys, I mean, your team was just oozing with confidence. You had the best group, the best coaching staff, obviously one of the best training staff. Just kind of switching gears on you. What kind of prop that desire? Now that post football, now you're in the seat where you're still around a lot of former athletes. Now you're kind of helping them in that muscle recovery, therapeutic realm. What kind of sparked that desire initially for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was definitely, I didn't feel that way right away as soon as I got to campus. I didn't know, for the first 2 years what I wanted my degree to be in. Got an exercise science degree. And then it really wasn't until my senior year that, kind of towards the spring and then the summer, that I decided, yeah, I think I'm going to try this grad school thing and apply to PT school for the
Oh.
following year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think leading up to that, I enjoyed science, and I thought the study of the human body and like the anatomy and physiology was interesting. And then, but I didn't know exactly how I wanted to apply it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually had a couple injuries myself, at least two bigger ones that required me to go to physical therapy. So that's kind of the cliche story. Like, you know, I went, I had a good experience, but I really did. And what impressed me was that the therapist, just the depth of understanding and knowledge that she had, and how she was able to actually help me pretty quickly uh, with that information, and the kind of rehab and the exercise that she gave me. And so I said, I think I want to be able to help athletes or active people or anyone in the same way with that depth of understanding. And so that's kind of when I made the decision. I was like, yeah, I think this is what I want to do.
Hmm. Wow. Eh, I've had a couple injuries, but I don't think I've ever had that feeling where once once I got hurt, I was like, okay, it was already a lot. It was therapeutic, by the way. I mean, I remember years ago, I had this happened in practice. It was I think I had an injury to the patellar tendon, and for 2 years I had patellar tendonitis, and long story short, one day I had evidently planted my left knee wrong in practice, and I had never felt uh, like my knee just kind of either buckle and then just kind of feel so sharp at the same time. Fortunately, I was able to walk, and so here I'm thinking, okay, I'll be okay by the next day. Well, the next day, no, I was sore. Gave it a week. Nothing changed. Nothing
Mm.
changed. I didn't realize the significance of, okay, I probably may need to actually go see somebody to do this. When you talk to any kind of client, when you're dealing with clients and they're just kind of reporting, hey, I'm dealing with some pain. Sometimes I think sometimes we have that tendency, we tend to ignore it and we think it's going to go away. But when we choose not to address the situation, then in the long term, that can have some long term effects. Do you notice anything that when people prolong an injury, whether it happened a week ago, a month ago, uh, 10 months ago, that their recovery process basically lengthens even further as they keep delaying the healing process?
That's a good question. I mean, I think uh, that's probably likely the case. I mean, obviously, if you don't, seek attention, then there's a good chance it will persist. But um, I think sometimes, like, obviously there's a huge spectrum of injuries, and it kind of depends on, what it is. You know, every little thing, if you feel kind of a little tweak here, maybe that doesn't require, going in and getting treatment. And sometimes if you're just reasonable and smart about it, uh, that will, go away. But obviously, by the time people get to me, it's usually been an issue for long enough where they're like, okay, I'm tired of this.
Hmm.
Or it is they're someone who's on top of it quickly and they feel like they just want to address it.
Hmm.
But I don't know if I could actually say whether or not that the time they come in uh, delays their recovery or not. But I think that's in theory, yeah, I would say probably, especially if someone just ignores it or continues to play through it. There's no question you could be making an injury worse, depending on what it is.
Yeah. Now, do you primarily focus in PT? Do you get a lot of folks that aren't exactly athletes and they come to you for an injury or a regimen or any kind of recovery session?
That's a good question. So, I mean, I'll just kind of say this. I kind of work in like two roles right now. So, I do work at just a private practice orthopedic clinic in
Hmm.
Spokane, and then I do a little bit of kind of remote kind of online rehab and training with people. And so I would say I definitely do. Uh, through that means, I do work with some people who maybe they don't have injuries necessarily, but they're looking to improve their performance, or they want to maybe just generally get back into, like you said, a regimen, and maybe they want to prepare themselves for an
Mhm.
activity. They want to feel
Yeah.
confident, like, hey, if I'm going to go and join a rec soccer or basketball league, that I feel like I could. So I've worked with people who maybe they're not dealing with an injury, but they don't feel currently prepared to do all the activities they want to.
Yeah. I've noticed even on some of your social, which I've seen a lot of different exercises. I'm not going to lie, I stole a couple of exercises from you.
Good. Hey, great.
Be- but hey, but it definitely helped because I never would have thought like, okay, this could actually increase like a little bit more stability, especially with being a runner. I certainly, as I've gotten older, try to definitely keep my body as young as possible because what I don't want to do is get my muscles all stiff and feel like I'm broken over the years. But
Yep,
I don't think
that's the plan. I'm there with you. Try to stay young. Keep that
yeah,
youthfulness.
exactly. Well, we definitely need youthfulness, and I think that youth and ability tends to kind of keep the heart young and just keep it fresh. And as we do that, we keep the body fresh. Um, so now, how long have you been doing the online coaching now? I know aside from your regular practice that you're doing, how long have you been doing the coaching now? What kind of inspired you to actually get into that coaching, developing, and training other people, whether it's an athlete or people that are just looking to get in better physical condition?
Yeah, no, I think I would say just it stems back from my um, just time as an athlete, and spending
Hmm.
time in the weight room, and just that kind of high energy, high intensity environment.
Hmm.
So just kind of having that background in strength and conditioning, I
Hmm.
always had an interest in that area. And then I think, after having worked in physical therapy for a while, I do enjoy it. I really like it. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, a lot of times I feel like I get people back to the point where, right, maybe this is their baseline. They have an injury, they come back down,
Hmm.
and then they get back to a point where they're like, okay, I'm healthy. Like, I'm good to go. But I always thought, like, there's more though. Like,
Hmm.
I want to see you not just get back to where you were like when you got hurt, but like how can we help you perform better or
Hmm.
achieve more? And so I
Hmm.
think that's part of the desire to kind of get into, you know a different role where I can help people on the
Hmm.
rehab side of things, but then I also can help them, improve strength, performance, whatever that may be. And so I've been doing that. I really started kind of with some different coaching programs and learning in November of like 2023, and then it's been a little over a year. I think in February 2024, I had my first client, and then it's um, grown a little bit since then. So
Wow. That's good. I actually like what you're doing because there are times, and I think this is so critical for an athlete where, okay, you get hurt, you rehab it, and then sometimes you just depart. You think, okay, well that was it. That's all that I need. But what I love what you're doing is like, hey, I'm not just here to help rehab, restore, but what if we could make some improvements to make things better? So that way we can make sure that as you're performing better, we're giving you new things to kind of help strengthen lower body, upper body. I love that. It's kind of I love that fact because most people tend to kind of just depart after they've already done the recovery. I've been guilty of it. I've done it before. So
yeah,
um,
absolutely. And just one thing I'll add, I think you know that's kind of partly the kind of the insurance model of like
mhm,
physical therapy. It's like most insurance companies like, are you back to your prior level of function, or can you perform daily activities?
Mm-hmm.
right? So it kind of sets it up to where people maybe do kind of hit that road where they're doing well enough that they can't get more authorization. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think, doing my own thing, there's a kind of a way around that a little bit. But yeah, there's always another goal, right? Like there's always, I think we should always set a target. And so whether you want to be, hey, I would like to do this with less pain, great. Once you get that, okay, now what? Like you can continue to, right, level up and uh, progress. And I mean, that's what life's all about, right? It's never just
Absolutely.
don't want to stay stationary.
Absolutely. Can you, as a physical therapist, can you ever tell when an athlete or when a person is back to 100% or 80% to where you see like, okay, I see this is where you are. I mean, I obviously, you're in that field every single day, so I can never tell. I've dealt with PT folks in the past. I've never known if they've been ever to tell, but is that even possible?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know if it's just by like the eyeball test, right? Looking at someone, uh, it's probably not possible. I think there's a number of things you should look at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, I mean, you can say someone might be at a certain percentage as far as like their strength level, right? If you're using like a dynamometer, which is like a way to just measure force, like so being very objective. So you could definitely do that where you are seeing like what is someone's strength level compared to their like non-involved side. Like it's very common, like following like an ACL reconstruction, to want to shoot for at least 90-95% strength of the uninvolved side
Mm-hmm.
for your like quads and hamstrings. Um, so I would say, and there's different things with different. You can look at range of motion, so you can have those objective marks, but then there is part of the kind of the art of it, right? The subjective, like, well, how do they look? How do they? You can kind of just see if someone feels like they're confident or if they feel like they're guarding it, and then hopefully you're working with a client who's truthful and truly wants to get back to their best self and not just I guess cut corners. I mean, just asking them, how they feel like, and if they're getting back into practice, like, well, what percent do you feel like you're at?
Mm-hmm.
They're probably going to be have kind of the best feel for where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah. I've often kind of wondered, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, when an athlete or when somebody goes through major kind of reconstruction, whether it's knee injury. Obviously, we see so many different people go through, whether it's ACL, MCL, Achilles, quads, major reconstruction that requires extensive rehab, and a time frame from what I see on some things can be, I think the minimum they say could be 8 months, maybe it could be a year, could even be longer. But I'm kind of wondering, and I love your opinion on this, is um, do people tend to actually, do the muscles tend to get stronger even though, yeah, they've been fully reconstructed, but can somebody still get and resume their same strength? Can they handle that same capacity once they've actually had the injury and they've had the surgery? Can somebody regain that form back?
That's a great question. I think it's definitely possible. I would say, um, and it depends on each individual case and kind of I would say, the severity of the injury. There's a number of other factors that likely would influence that. But there's no question that, uh, a big injury is working against you. Like you said, if it's if it's an ACL, so right, a ligament, it doesn't necessarily, uh, like maybe there wasn't, how should I say this? It'll affect the muscles based on the graft they use. So like if you take an ACL, right, it's typically going to be from their patellar
Hmm.
tendon, quad tendon, or they'll use sometimes one of your
Yep.
hamstring tendons.
Wow.
as the new ACL. And so a lot of times what we see is just with the surgery, that's just a general insult to the knee and it causes a lot of inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
And then that leads to what we call inhibition. So that'll basically be the kind of process where essentially there's a lot of inflammation, right? Swelling, pain, and that's going to lead to less muscle activity. And you see that in the quadriceps quite often after that injury. And that can
Mm-hmm.
happen at other areas. So I would
Yeah.
say the inhibition, right? I always say pain is a very good inhibitor, right? If you're in pain, you're not going to want to create a lot of force where there's pain. And so it definitely takes some smart, uh, rehab and some hard work and consistency to overcome those deficits. But I definitely think it's possible. I think it's uh, I would say unfortunately I would say more times than not people might have a slight deficit after a big injury where maybe they come back and they're just not quite to the level they were prior to. Um, but I don't think it has to be that way. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely realistic and possible to return to that level.
Yeah. And do you think that also there's an old saying sometimes. Actually, it's not even a saying. It's just I think this is just a thought that um, many people, and I've conversated with many people, where we overtrain ourselves and think that we're okay. For example, I remember a couple times I had uh, extensively trained in a day, and way longer, and then maybe it was a day or so later, I ended up suffering an injury. And so, when you work with people, do you caution people from overtraining so that they know that, hey, you don't want to work too hard. You need to allow your body to rest. You don't want to stress the muscle. Do you caution people doing that?
I definitely do in certain people. I would say that uh, there's a whole spectrum of people who are kind of how much work do they want to do. There might be some people in the rehab process or even just strength process who they don't really want to go into fatigue, right? They don't want to exert themselves all that hard. And so those people you do need to kind of say, hey, like we need to push a little bit. Like if we're gonna see some change, we gotta stress ourselves enough, or maybe they're experiencing some pain and they're super maybe apprehensive to movement, and so trying to educate them like, hey, a little discomfort can be okay. But then on the other end, there's definitely people who maybe need to hold back a little bit, or they're uh, being a little too aggressive or a little too reckless. And, um, when dealing with pain, that can definitely be a problem. But just for, anyone with just strength goals, I think overtraining definitely can be a problem that's maybe you could get away with it for a while, but it would probably catch up to you eventually if you're not getting the proper rest.
Mm, yeah, no, that's good. In today's We see so much today in the professional realm, so many athletes where, and I think this is more so in like in the basketball realm, where we're seeing rest kind of taking more and more toll on the athletes. We're seeing so many athletes, and fans I've talked to say they have an issue because a lot of these athletes are resting, and I'm kind of wondering, and Zach, I'd love your opinion. I'm kind of wondering is do you think do you think a lot of these professional sports teams that are choosing to rest their athletes and knowing that, hey, we just saw them play 2 days ago, but now 2 days later they're resting. They should be okay. And so I'm kind of wondering what can happen so much in the difference where we can see an athlete full 100% one day, and then a day or two later, okay, they're sitting on the sideline, and you see the injury report that somebody's got a toe injury, somebody is nursing a quad injury, and I'm like, wow, can an injury just hurt them like just that much a couple days later? And now we're seeing all of these athletes, they're just resting.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, right? Load management. And yeah, specifically with basketball, they'll look at like, minutes played in a game or a given week. And so, they have, I'm pretty sure they have all the technology, or probably someone's job is just to track that metric. Um, but yeah, that definitely did not used to be a thing. I mean, I remember, I don't know who it was, but you'd hear of guys like Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, like these guys are a little banged up, right? I think I remember seeing when I was younger, just a picture, and it was like Allen Iverson
Mm-hmm.
and the number of injuries, like, oh, he's got a pinky, an elbow, a knee, an ankle, like a number of injuries. And I don't know if it was him who said this, but I remember one athlete said, hey, like if I'm going to, I'm going to play, I'm going to try to play every game, every night, and give the best I can, because who knows what kid is coming to this game, and maybe that's the only game he gets to see. And, these athletes are getting paid a lot of money. And so I can see that argument for, hey, like these guys should be on the court. But if you're looking at it from a, business or a player health standpoint, it makes sense. I mean, there's probably guys who, like you said, could that injury just pop up? It's like likely not an injury that truly is holding them out. Like if it was the playoffs, they'd be out there, right? If it's a game 7, they're playing. But if it's, game 30 or 40 of the season, they probably feel like they can afford to, miss a couple games, or the coaching staff is like, well, we need this guy to be healthy at the end of the season. So that's probably what's going on as far as the load management, and just they're trying to be smart and keeping guys healthy throughout the whole season, because
Mm-hmm.
82 games plus playoffs is a lot of basketball.
Yeah, it is a lot. And compared to, your sport in football, you guys are only playing, in college, I think they play maybe 12, 13 games. NFL now it's 17 games. But but you guys are out there every week. Certainly there's no way you guys are hitting each other pads on every single day in practice.
Nope.
Otherwise, that would be a totally different conversation. So then, because you guys are getting banged up, almost every single play. It's a bang bang play. It's like, how many snaps? I don't know how many snaps are actually recorded in a game. One day I'm gonna figure out what that is.
I don't know that number either.
But but for the amount of snaps and repetitions that football athletes get to NBA, it just baffles me sometimes. So I'm always just kind of wondering, what is the rest and recovery process like? And as you continue to kind of develop, obviously build your practice, what are some goals that you have set for yourself, for your business, for your family? What are some goals that you kind of see yourself achieving over the next couple of years? Some things that you want to continue to grow, maybe some programs you may want to help others with.
Totally. Yeah, I think even in the last month or two, that's been a big focus for me, is just trying to reflect a little bit and get a little bit more clarity, as far as what is my vision, how do I want to help people? Because I do have a number of interests, and I think sometimes it can be tough to say like, what route do I want to go down exactly? And so trying to just spend some time and kind of even just journaling and thinking, and like, what do I want? But if I had to say right now, like, I'm doing the online kind of rehab and training, and I do enjoy that. But I think, I would love to get into uh, whether it's a gym, whether it's a building somewhere I can rent. I like to get into a facility, and I think the goal would be to do a hybrid model where I am seeing clients uh, in person, can get more of a hands-on assessment, see them move, and then
Mhm.
uh, a combination of follow-up visits in person and kind of using the technology and apps and educational resources online. I think that's kind of the sweet spot where I could be really effective. But as far as a specific, individual or type of program, um, yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth. That's kind of, I guess, one of the things I'm trying to decide. Who I want to help. I would say I kind of gravitate towards like lower extremity injuries. So whether it's like hip, knee, or ankle, I would say probably whether it's someone who's a competitive athlete or someone who's just a recreational athlete and wants to be able to play in a flag football league or uh, go for a run or hike and be healthy. That's kind of
Yeah.
my broad answer.
Yeah. Well, I think those are some great goals. And I think, especially with what you're in, I think a lot of people certainly, I definitely can see a lot of people taking you up on that. And muscle recovery, I feel like, especially, as our bodies get older, I feel like now more than ever. I don't know why I never took advantage of just a lot of more rest, but I feel like now more than ever, rest rehabilitation is just so crucial. My wife will tell you the same thing. She plays competitive volleyball, and so she has to do the same thing. But I learned a lot from you just having you on here, and you, my friend, are going to do some really great things. And very proud to hear just everything that you're doing. You have a tremendous heart, you have a tremendous spirit, and I think just the you're helping your heart that you have that just ultimate servantship heart, and believe me, that's going to go very long for you. So, you, my friend, thank you so much for just being a part on here. I'm so glad I was able to have you on here, get to share your story. I learned a lot from you from this. You are just fantastic.
Aaron, I appreciate you having me on here, and yeah, just giving me a platform to just share a little bit about some things that I care about. So that was super cool. I had fun.
Absolutely.